What's up, Weekend Warriors? To the Week 3 predictions on the show today. Crazy week of fantasy last week. Can't believe it's Week 3 already. Feels like I was just filming the Week 1 podcast, but here we are. It is Wednesday, the 18th. The commission's riding high. You know, it's no secret that I am an avid fantasy football participant. I'm in 4 leagues, 3 dynasty leagues. I'm sorry, 1 dynasty league and 3 others. In my dynasty league, we play against the league median, which is kind of a cool format if you haven't tried that before. Kind of helps you not get screwed by a schedule. If you play the second highest scorer that week and you lose your matchup, you still play. If you're in the top half of the league in scores, you get a win. So you'd be 1-1, and vice versa. If you scored the second least points, but you played the worst point scorer that week, you beat that matchup, but you lose the median. So I think you guys get it. Long story short, I'm 4-0 in that league, 2-0 in another league, 2-0 in another league, and in our league I'm 1-1. So 1 loss in 2 weeks. I'm riding high, which is really bad because it's way too early, and there's been a ton of injuries, and I feel like Owen Wilson and what's that movie, Chris, that we love? Shanghai Noon, where he's got 1 bullet, the other guy's got 90. He comes out, he's got holes in his shirt and all this crazy stuff. I'm hitting my bets. I'm winning fantasy. I'm only 1-1 here, but a huge win last week. And the high score of the week, yours truly, the commish, beats Jake. I said I was going to knock Jake down a peg after, he wanted to put the league on notice, and, he was playing on easy mode. He was eating some of his words a little bit. He's like, I didn't kill Brett. He had a bad week. I said I took care of him. So, little slice of humble pie, regardless, to the champion there, and it felt good. So, let's get into it real quick. My NFL picks: Buffalo plus 2.5 Thursday night. The Thursday night king, undefeated. Just obviously, I would be. I'm the king. 2-0 on the year on Thursday night. And then my Minnesota Vikings, baby, got the hat. We won outright against the San Francisco 49ers. I gave out a 6.5 line. It went down to 4.5. I sprinkled money line. Easiest bet of the week. Vikings took care of business. So I'm 3-1 on the week. 3-1 on the season, 2-0 on the week, and undefeated on Thursday night. So stay tuned for my Thursday night pick coming up later. Fantasy wise, I let the cat out of the bag with me and Jake. I beat him. I was the high scorer of the week. He had a good week. He had Alvin Kamara. He was the best fantasy player in the league pretty much last week, but I just had great performances elsewise. So I took care of him. Dean over Kevin. That happened. Kevin has a ton of injuries. Terry over Chris. I said don't pick against Terry. Chris is decimated with some injuries of his own. I said he peaked. He scored 140 against me. I think he scored 14 points total last week. So Chris, down week. I was wrong about Otley over Valone. In that little rivalry, Valone took care of business. And then I said Booty would beat Brett, and that happened. A little bit of drama in Brett's matchup. Got to bring it up. Last week, Brett had Evan Ingram. When inactives were announced at 11:30, obviously you can make pickups all the way to noon on Sunday. Ingram was not a part of the inactives list. A late scratch around noontime on Sunday. Hey, he got injured in warm-ups. He's not going to play. So Brett was scrambling, he had no tight end on his bench. And unfortunately, the way that the waivers are set up, he did not have an option to pick somebody up. We had some rules in the past with some COVID stuff, and we've adapted so many times. We've had the rules this way for a long time, and there really haven't been many issues like this. The way that it's set up right now, if your guy gets hurt after inactives are announced at 11:30, it's basically equivalent to him getting hurt in the game. Is that the right way to do it? Maybe not. There's a couple things you could do. You could put waivers run on Monday. And then if you had a guy get injured, you could put that guy on IR or cut him and then allow you to pick somebody up Monday. Now, it'd be a limited pool of players. And, I don't love that because then some people have all their guys play Sunday and are not eligible to pick up a player Monday. And if there's a substantial change, like I'm going to use a bad example, but let's say McCaffrey, was announced out at 9 a.m. Monday morning, and Jordan Mason was out on the wire. Some people would have access to Mason Monday night if the Niners played Monday night, and others would not. So that's imperfect, but I think I will admit that maybe the way it's set up right now is imperfect. So we'll look at it. There's a way sometimes to open up waivers at a certain time. I think that ESPN is a little restrictive with that. I think we moved to ESPN so we could make waivers run at noon every day. And that was an improvement of what we had before. It used to run overnight. And then, news would come out Sunday morning between inactives and weather and whatever. A lot changed. So we said, hey, we need to give people all the way up until noon to make a decision. So, we've improved it. Maybe it can be further improved. But for what it's worth, in the NFL, the Jaguars, they had to announce their inactives 90 minutes before. And Evan Ingram was not announced. He got hurt in warm-ups. They couldn't bring a guy up. They were stuck with whoever else they had. They kind of had to make do. So it's kind of an unfortunate circumstance. Brett lost by, I think if you picked up every tight end on the wire and put them all together, sorry, Bert, you still would have lost. I think he was joking around about picking up Calcaterra. It would have been kind of funny if he had like 4 touchdowns. But unfortunate situation for Brett. And just going forward, that's something you got to be cognizant of. Try to have a backup, whether it's tight end, wide receiver, running back. And look, if guys are questionable or probable or even healthy going into, Sunday night games and Monday night games, I know this was a 1 o'clock, but obviously if it would have been one of those games, it would have been a little bit more difficult from a contingency perspective too. So work within the confines of the rules. Last pickups are noon on Sunday for the week until Wednesday at noon, and we'll look at it. We'll try to get better. So, but in any event, moving on into the Week 3 matchups, and listen, I'm just going to go out and say this. Booty's a new guy in the league. Some other folks, Valone took him a couple of years to get acclimated. He won the second year, what am I saying? But in any event, or third year, whatever it was. But in any event, 10-team league, 4 teams make the playoffs. Regular season matters. You can't start in a hole. For you teams that are 0-2, I'm looking at you, Brett. I'm looking at you, Ott. It is not even close to too late. But you got to put your foot in the ground here soon. And these 2 teams play each other this week. An 0-3 start in this league is not where you want to be. So we'll see if, who rights the ship. And we'll talk about that matchup a little later. So before we do the matchups, I do want to talk about Fab. Some crazy acquisitions today for Kamala as she prepares for her campaign. Kevin, a 50 burger on Carson Steele, the alligator hunter, the crocodile hunter, whatever they call him. He has a pet crocodile. Look it up. It's kind of cool. But they got Kareem Hunt now. They got P. Ryan. They got Steele. And they got, maybe Pacheco coming back at some point. Kev breaks the bank, $50. The next highest bid was 17. Got a bunch of texts. My dad, what's Kevin doing? That's a lot. That's expensive. Kev texted me. I had to shake things up. I had some injuries. I don't want to start out in a hole. I admire that because if you have 70 fab left in your bank account in week 9 when you're 2-7, I guess that doesn't really help you. So, hey, you're making moves. I respect it. Kev is a former champion in this league, 2-time champion. So maybe in a couple weeks he'll tell you I told you so with his Carson Steele pickup. But other than that, not a lot of other action. Just looking real quick, Quentin Johnson, another pickup for Kevin for $10, bolstering his wide receiver room. And then Brett, Hunter Henry, got a backup tight end now. He's probably starting because Evan's injured for a while here. So moving on into the matchups, we're going to start with my dad and Chris, which this was a candidate for matchup of the week. Not going to lie to you, but I looked at it, and I got to be honest with you. I said on the podcast last week that Chris T peaked against me, and I'm standing behind it. Last week, what did you score, Chris? I'm not going to have any revisionist history or errors on the show. 74.5. That's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. This week, people might say, why do you see it that way? Well, I see it that way because I think Josh Allen had a 4-touchdown week in week 1. That team doesn't want him throwing the ball that many times. They want to run the ball. They want to play defense. Monday Night Football against Jacksonville, he'll probably have an okay game, but week 1 might be his best or second best performance all year. Tyreek now with no Tua. That's a big deal. I do like Shaheed. Very good pickup by Chris to have him in, but some injuries. Rachaad White, questionable. Jaden Reed, questionable, and his quarterback still questionable. And then obviously we know about the Puka injury. So I'm not high on Chris's team. I've been an advocate of Chris's over the last couple of years and promoting some of the teams he's drafted. Not my favorite team. On the flip side, I said my dad was weak at wide receiver. All of a sudden, Jameson Williams, a stud. Jackson Smith and Jigba last week, who I was out on this year. 16 targets, 12 catches for 117 yards. For those of you like me who took a victory lap in week 1 for being out on him and being happy that I passed on him after he had 19 yards, guess again, he's a really solid wide receiver 3. So you put them together with Drake London, and he does have Pittman right now on the bench, but another solid receiver. And then the running backs. Kyron hasn't been great, solid. Connor had home against Detroit. That offense looks really, really good. And then Jordan Mason, thank God that my dad got him with McCaffrey on his IR. And C.J. Stroud, my boy, my man. I think Dean takes care of business over Chris. And I think Dean's team is on the rise. If he can rattle off some wins, ride out Jordan Mason, get McCaffrey back at the right time, look out for, you sound like you're from London. I like this team. Moving on, second matchup. Let me scroll down here. I have Kevin versus Valone. And this was another potential matchup of the week, but I looked at this again, and I see two teams that I'm not in love with. So, quarterbacks. Quarterback play across the NFL has been horrific. Solid guys like Jared Goff has looked bad. And then these rookies, we talked about it last week. I'm not going to go into it again, but Brock Purdy on Kevin's side has looked pretty bad. And Kev has Jordan Love on IR. And then we all know that Valone drafted Kirk Cousins, has him on his bench, and he has Baker Mayfield. Baker's been pretty good. But those guys, neither one of those guys knocked my socks off. Purdy at the Rams, Mayfield at home against Denver. Valone does pair him with Mike Evans, which is a nice little hookup there. And then Bijan and Jacobs, very solid. And then the receivers, though, for one, I will say, Devontae, Metcalf, Evans, and then Keenan Allen should be coming back healthy. On Kevin's side, loses Cooper Kupp, which is a huge, huge, huge hit to him. And Mixon is questionable. He does have Akers. Achan's a beast. Jefferson was a scary injury. He's going to be okay. I have written down here that I like Kevin in this matchup. Maybe Ayuk gets going with Purdy, that little hookup with Debo out. But I'm looking at this again with Mixon questionable. I do like Zamir this week against Carolina. That's a great matchup for him. Bowers is a stud. But, man, fun fact, I picked Valone to lose both his matchups. I picked Kev to lose both his matchups. One of these guys I'm going to pick to lose for the third time. Two big fans, 5-star reviewers. I don't want to pander to anybody. I'm joking, but I'm going to take Valone. I'm going to change it. I had Kevin down, and lucky Valone, I think, does get it done. And I think Kevin does have a good team, but he has some injuries. He needs some good news on Love, and he needs some good news on Kupp, and he needs some good news on Mixon. So I'm going to take Valone with those question marks right now. Another matchup of the week, runner-up. This one, for real, I was going to make it, but I'm saving it for the battle of the 0-2s. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I guess I did. So, Tank Diesel. Jake's been the matchup of the week 2 weeks in a row. I can't make him a third. First, Terry, the Hertz locker. Terry is in first place. Stop me if you've heard that before. However, in first place, but from a total points perspective, pretty average. To give you a little barometer, Otley's 0-2. He has 224 points. And Terry's 2-0, and he has 229 points. It's a 5-point spread. So I don't think Terry's knocking people's socks off. That's the second time I use that analogy tonight. But just a really solid team from Terry. He's going to be there at the end. Don't worry, he'll be there. But same thing I said about Tyreek. Waddle takes a little bit of a downgrade. I think upgrade for Deontay Johnson with the quarterback replacement there. Hurts should be fine in a potential shootout against New Orleans. Jonathan Taylor, a little worrisome, that usage. The coach came out and said, yeah, he wasn't in the fourth quarter because we were throwing. That's a pretty idiotic thing to say, even if it's true. And Kittle should get a bump. Amari Cooper is a really interesting. He's the 85th wide receiver on the year. He has 17 targets. He caught 5 of them. Deshaun Watson's so bad. But Jake's team, great week last week. Ran through the buzzsaw with me. Kamara might be the steal of the draft. He's averaging 31.8 points. He was drafted in the 4th round. Great pick by Jake, and he might get Ferguson back this week. Lamar in a shootout against the Cowboys. Lamb in that same matchup, he should eat. And I think Tank Dell is going to be the guy this week. He had one catch for -3 yards last week. Stroud missed him on a seam route, which would have been a touchdown. I just have a feeling that he's going to get it done, and a la Jake's name, Tank Diesel. I'm taking Jake to beat Terry. I think this is a battle of juggernauts, 2 potential playoff teams, and Terry's good. He'll be there at the end, but I don't think he's going to be 16-0. So I'm taking Tank Diesel to take care of business this week over Terry. And that brings me to my matchup of the week. Chasing the bag, Brett versus Op. Brett, storylines, man. Came into the season, Jake spitting out spreadsheets saying that Brett's performance over the last 5 years has been subpar. Brett comes in with a chip on his shoulder. His tight end gets ruled out. We talked about that. Brett, least amount of points scored on the season so far, and he's in the basement. He's the only team that has not scored 200 points on the year. He's at 176. Otley wasn't available for the draft, was in Alaska on the edge of the mountain, whatever he was doing, snorkeling in an iceberg. Mahomes and Kelsey, a staple for Ock. Those guys, I don't know what it is with Travis. Is he old? Is he going to too many Taylor Swift concerts? He is the tight end 26 on the season, and Mahomes is the quarterback 12. I had Mahomes in fantasy last year. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. He was horrible in fantasy. They lose Pacheco. Does that mean he has to throw a little bit more? He doesn't have Hollywood. He's really got Rasheed, a shell of Travis Kelsey, and the rookie in Worthy. So I don't know if it's going to get better for him. For Otley, do things get better? Saquon is great. Ramondre is very solid. Amon-Ra in that game against Arizona. He was maybe questionable coming into this week, but he practiced today. He'll be fine. Maybe he'll get T. Higgins back. That's still yet to be seen. But I'm going to give Brett a vote of confidence here, man. Bengals look better, a little bit more spry last week against the Chiefs. Jamar Chase has to have the week this week. A dream matchup against Washington. Burrow and Chase get it back together. I think Derrick Henry is washed, but he can be washed and still fall into the end zone for Baltimore, so he'll still be solid. Brett might get Mostert back this week. He's got to make a decision there between him and Chubba Wubba Hubbard. And don't get me wrong, I don't love Brett's team, especially with Debo injured. But I do like him this week. Devonta Smith's a stud. I think DJ Moore will get better. Godwin's been really, really good, unfortunately, on Brett's bench last week. So I think Brett takes care of business. I think it's an uphill climb for Otley, and as he falls to 0-3. And then me versus Booty. Booty comes in the season, his rookie season. He's 2-0. Not a ton of points, 225. He said his best player has been his kicker. And that's true. Kyrie Fairbairn is great. Kickers have been good. Quarterbacks have been bad. That's the story of the NFL through the first couple weeks. But Booty's team is super solid. He picked up Derek Carr, who's been phenomenal, chucking the ball deep. People were panicking a little bit about Marvin Harrison Jr., and he shut people up really, really quick. So Rashee Rice might be the steal of the draft. Booty got him late. I was eyeing him. Some others probably were as well. He's been super solid. But and then again, that stack with Carr and Olave and Laporta's due to get it going. So very, very solid team for Booty. And I am a little afraid of Breece Hall tomorrow night against New England. I think he should be in for a big game. I'm going to go out and say it right now. Jets -6. That's my pick on Thursday night. I'm the king. Please give me a crown. I think New England's kept both games they've been in very close. They've covered the spread in both. The first week, they beat Cincinnati outright at home. And then they played Seattle last week, and I think they covered even though they lost in overtime. The Jets have not looked good, and New England has looked better than they should. And this is a 6-point line. If I had to guess the line, I would have said it probably would have been 4.5, maybe 4, maybe 5. New England's got a good defense. Take the Jets. The line to me is telling me that they get it going. Rodgers probably throws a few touchdowns, and hopefully they're to Garrett Wilson. Can't wear his jersey every week. He hasn't got it going yet, but I do like him to hopefully get it going tomorrow. Hopefully he can cancel out some of Booty's points for Breece Hall. But my team after 2 weeks, I'm 1-1, but I love my team. I have the most points in the league. Kyler looks super, super legit. Trey McBride looks good. Hopefully he'll catch some touchdowns and not MHJ this week. But Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, and my buddy, Won't You Be My Neighbor, Malik Neighbors, looks like a stud. And Nico Collins, man, the wide receiver 1 on the season so far, 2 100-yard games, a touchdown last week. He is a man. He catches the ball. He runs people over. He's like the new, younger, better-looking Mike Evans. Love that guy. Really solid team for me. ESPN projects me to lose by 1. I think I get it done. Booty, I'm going to try to hand you your first loss this week. Maybe we'll get you on the pod next couple weeks. We'll talk about it. My other pick, NFL pick, Chargers +1.5. Okay? 2 2-0 teams, Chargers and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been winning and covering. Justin Fields has looked good. Steelers at home. It's a pick 'em. The Chargers, Harbaugh figures it out. It's kind of a weird line. I think they win this game outright. Obviously, take the 1.5. That's my pick. Chargers 1.5. Guys, we will have a special guest on next week. TBD who? And I wish you guys good luck here in week 3. Commish out. Enjoy, boys.